Now, guaranteed wide awake here in the studio is today's guest, Patrick Cowden. Patrick spent years as a high-flying manager, and he's now a best-selling author on the topic of work and corporate culture. Patrick, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Helena.
Now, firstly, it seems that young people want to have fun in the workplace, and the older generation seems intent on continuing to work. Is that really the case?
Well, I think fun is probably not exactly the right word. I think they're searching for sense of purpose and meaning. And the interesting thing is that connects both generations, because the older generation is looking for the same thing. They don't want to just quit and stop everything their life purpose has been about. They want to continue. So I think connecting those two potentials of the young, the vitality, and the older with the wisdom, that's an interesting challenge for the future.
Could that potentially be also a nice way of putting a spin on things? For example, we do see a lot of young people who are stuck in this vicious circle of unending internships, and then perhaps the older generation who simply don't stop working because they can't make ends meet, perhaps.
Well, I think, jumping from one internship to the next is a way of expressing that search. That search for meaningfulness. And I think all the generations have had that, but the younger generation is a little bit bolder about sticking to it longer. And I think that the older generation, as they can recognize the potentials coming from Gen Y, I think it would activate the older generation to go further and to give more than they have before. And I think it's the challenge to the organizations to find an environment that can activate that for all the generations in the company.
Absolutely. German companies have been sounding the alarm about the potential of skilled workers retiring, and they're not having the young professionals coming in to fill those jobs. So how do we attract and retain young talent?
Well, I think that's one of the elements, is attracting the talent. But I think the other element is activating everything that's there. If 85% of people aren't activated in quality and engaged, the bigger question for current organizations is not filling the smaller gap, but activating the bigger piece of the organization across all generations, men and women, everybody going further than they've ever gone before. That's fun.
You've held leadership positions at Deutsche Bank, at Dell, at Hitachi. You're somebody who knows what it's like to do 80-hour work weeks and have back-to-back meetings, for example. So how did you manage it personally?
Well, it's always a challenge. And I think over the years, that was 8 years ago at Dell, where it was the worst, you realize that everywhere in the world, all the different places I go, you see that same mechanism. Focus on profit, focus on results, and it comes at a price. We lose connection to the things that are most important to us. And at some point, you get sick, you get burnt out. And that's not in the interest of the company. So the organizations need to understand, is there a way to change the environment so that we activate the goodness and not the badness?
And how should they do that? What needs to change in corporate culture, do you think?
Well, I think understanding the drivers around people and the quality of our teamwork underneath all the cultural layers. Elements like respect and trust and appreciation, they breed a strength and a health that it's not about the hours we do, but the quality of how we do those hours. If we can come home with motivation and engagement and feel really good about the day, that's a quality that's not at the top of the list of most companies today. I think that's the future of where we need to go.
Well, let's talk a little bit international then. We know that in Japan that there can be quite a rigid working culture than, say, for example, here in Germany, that France can be hierarchical. Where's a good place to work?
Well, I think the workplace of the future crosses all those different boundaries. It's not just Oberbayern, one part of one country. I think these cultures, as they come together in the globalization, we see a huge human potential underneath, that respect element, that trust element. And I think if organizations can connect that together, that's where we want to work. We want to work where this quality of teamwork is at a high level and our engagement goes up every single day. And not the opposite effect that we see out there today, that almost no one really wants to give everything for their team or their company anymore. There's a brighter future that we can strive for. I like that future better.
Thank you very much for joining us, Patrick Cowden.
Thank you, Helena.